Good morning to everyone. My name is Srawut Aree, a director of the Muslim Studies Center, Institute of Asian Studies, Chulalongkorn University. I am also one of the board committee members of the Council for Humanitarian Networking of Sheikhul Islam Office in Thailand. On behalf of our Council for Humanitarian Networking, allow me first to express our deep appreciation and thanks to the CMARC for hosting this crucial meeting on the current crisis in the occupied Palestinian territories. Dear brothers and sisters, as we all know, on May 21st, after bombarding Gaza for 11 days and killing more than 250 Palestinians, including 67 children, Israel finally announced a ceasefire. In this tragedy, Israel's proposed full targeting of residential areas and homes has left some 74,000 people homeless in Gaza. Other civilian buildings were also damaged or destroyed, including schools, ministries, police stations, banks, clinics, and hospitals. In addition, Israeli fighter jets bomb vital infrastructure in Gaza, damaging roads and putting electricity and water installation out of order. Undoubtedly, Israeli forces intended to kill civilians, including children, and destroy the homes and livelihoods of Gaza's Palestinians in yet another act of collective punishment which is against the international law. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that we witness an Israeli attack against Gaza. We saw this happen in 2008. We saw this happen in 2012 again. And we saw this happen again in 2014. Israel believed that its military might will crush the Palestinian resistance to fight for its freedom. But this is a mistaken perception. The Palestinian people will not succumb to Israel's tyranny, as we learned from the past. The Palestinians will continue their struggle against the Israeli occupation and oppression. As to the latest attack against Gaza, Israel tried to explain to the world that this is a conflict between Israel and Hamas. But in reality, it's not. The reality is that this is a confrontation between Israel as an occupier and the Palestinian people as the occupied. It was the Palestinian people of Jerusalem. It was the Palestinian people in the West Bank. It was the Palestinian people in Jerusalem, in Israel itself. And it was the Palestinian refugees in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, and on the Palestinian diaspora that rose against Israeli oppression. This is what happened on the ground. Hamas only entered this round of hostilities at a later stage in response to popular pressure. I will tell you why Hamas came later. If we trace back all the tragedies that happened in Gaza and whole the areas of occupied Palestinian territories, we have to begin in April. In April, with the Israeli forces reportedly storming Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, harassing Muslim and Christian Palestinians who were trying to reach their holy places, threatening to evict yet another group of Palestinians from their homes in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, and protecting Israel extremists marching through the city and chanting death to the Arabs. So demonstration erupted in response to these continuous provocations in Jerusalem, which were quickly met with police brutal forces. So that's why there was a public call on Hamas to respond to the Israeli attack started coming out from everywhere in the Palestinian territories, in Gaza, in West Bank, in Jerusalem. So if you remember, early on May 10, the Israeli occupation forces once again stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound and injuring some 300 Palestinians. This just to clear the way for unknown extremist Israeli march through Jerusalem's own city. Palestinian anger at this provocation reached a climax. Under popular pressure, the military resistant faction in Gaza finally decided to intervene, and later that day, they issued an ultimatum to the Israeli occupation to leave Al-Aqsa Mosque, to leave Sheikh Jarrah. But Israel did not comply, and that was why Hamas fired rockets towards Jerusalem. This is what happened. But if we go back to the real problem of the Palestinian issues, I think the real problem is that Israel always sought to divide Palestinian people. Israel tried to kill their solidarity. Israel tried to eradicate their national identity and to undermine their cohesion. Even in the media, you see, Palestinians in Gaza, Palestinians in the West Bank, and the Palestinians of the 1948 territories, the Palestinians in Jordan, the Palestinians who are in the camp in Lebanon and Syria, are presented as if they are different people with different problems. But in fact, their problem is one and the same. That is the problem of Israel's occupation and colonization of their land, which has led to their expulsion, dispossession, and oppression. This is the real problem. The ceasefire that Israel announced on May 20th may have taken Palestine off the international news agenda, but it has not stopped Israeli colonial violence against the Palestinians. Just 3 days later, the Israeli police and Jewish settlers stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque again. The Israeli government launched a massive campaign of arrest against Palestinian citizens of Israel for coming out in support of Sheikh Jarrah and Gaza, detaining over 1,500 Palestinian people. Israel also raided dozens of Palestinian homes across the occupied West Bank, arresting more Palestinian people. The Israeli government is showing no signs of ceasing its colonial violence against the Palestinians. And in doing so, it is repeating past mistakes of other colonial powers. As its repression of the Palestinians increased in severity, so does the unity of the Palestinian people. Their solidarity and determination to resist. Of course, the Palestinians will continue to pay a great price in pain and suffering as long as the occupation continues. But the events of the past few weeks have re-energized the Palestinian national movement and brought new hope that the Palestinian struggle for freedom and justice will be victorious. Lastly, I would like to say that the Palestinian problem is not a conflict. These are not clashes. This is not an Arab issue. This is not a Muslim issue. This is not a Jewish or a Christian issue. But this is a human issue. So help Palestine. Let humanity prevail. And once again, thank you very much to have me here and give me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts. Thank you very much.